there is the misuse, and there is the abuse. And the use of words should always clarify something. The misuse is apt to complicate something, and the abuse is usually a complete statement of negation or a harmful and destructive application of language. So we start with the beginning, the words as useful, the words as means of communication, the use of words. Now we have to study and realize, to begin with, that there are two levels upon which the human being attempts to function. These are more or less outlined in the concepts of science and the various forms of special research projects. The first problem that we have to face is that words do not actually give you the full meaning of the sounds that you make. They can give meaning, they can give false meaning. They can deny meaning. But very few words can convey the real meaning of themselves. A German college professor a number of years ago kept his students in a sort of lethargy because he would not permit them to question him. He would talk to them about something and said to, "Why is this, Professor?" The professor was silent. After a long series of such experiences, the professor finally confessed the facts of life as he understood them. He said, "We can only answer the question why by substituting for it the question how. When we say why, we mean how." Now this is a simple statement of the fact that we don't know the fact. It is a clear indication that the why is unanswerable, or at least is so dim and obscure that it cannot be applied to any definite situation. We cannot say why with certainty. We do not know why the sun rises, but we know how it rises according to mechanics and astronomical calculations. We do not know why certain things happen, but we know how they happen. We do not know why man was created, but we know how he was created to a degree, so that the use of the word why has been almost abandoned in higher intellectualism because of the simple fact that the individual ultimately has to face his own ignorance. And to answer the question that is asked by why would require a knowledge beyond that possessed by the average human being. So we are confronted with the fact that we must deal with secondary facts. Primary fact remains elusive and beyond our comprehension. So we actually are constantly using language with certain defeatism inevitable. In order to speak a language correctly, we have to do what some of our earlier ancestors did, and that is make a life discipline out of language. In other words, if you use words, then you must consider them part of a science that must be conquered by itself. If you wish to be a grammarian correctly, you have to make words a matter of serious consideration. You cannot just open your mouth and let anything come out that feels like appearing at the moment. It has to be disciplined. To make words consistent and meaningful, there must be discipline. A superficial statement has very little basic authority and very little probability of complete fulfillment. So we start with the question now as to why we cannot ask the question why. And that is because of the absence of knowledge of first cause. Behind the little world we live in at the moment is a vast purpose. We feel sometimes that we are touching the hem of that purpose. We believe that that purpose can be approached. But in sober substance, all such speculation is lacking in final formality. We cannot answer the question of why the universe was created. why God in infinite wisdom created the capacity for evil. We don't know, as to one theologian asked, how it happened that when God created paradise, he also made the snake. Now, did he or didn't he? And then we come to the why again, and we don't know the answer. We do not know most of the answers that are in depth. And this in itself is important. It tells us something that we all should understand. We should realize that the use of knowledge is largely to discover the cause and source of things. But in our daily lives, we do not pay much attention to this. We are content to drift along on the surface, allowing the moods of the moment to control the use of words. This is not the way it should be. At school, for instance, we learn to liken words to objects. But even when we apply the word to the object, we have lost something. We have lost inner meaning. We call things by the name. We say this is a carrot, and we therefore get a good mark on our examination paper. But what is a carrot? Neither the student nor the teacher knows, actually. It becomes merely a term to define the fact that we have accepted the language which we are studying, and that in that language, this particular vegetable is a carrot. But this does not tell us a thing about the carrot. It only divides it from some other vegetable. Why it is divided, how it is divided, what the life means, we do not know. But from the very earliest times, human beings attempted to find ways of learning the true meaning of the things which they classified. And in the old hieroglyphic languages, they aided themselves by making pictures of the object. Pictures would be carved in stone, or pressed into clay, or written on paper or parchment. They made likenesses of the thing they were trying to discover or decide. And in this way, they had a little more dimension than we get from words, because we add picture or likeness, and this becomes a very valuable factor. But all the way along, particularly in the modern world, words have to be carefully considered and weighed. They can be a cause of war. They can result in riots. They can bring down the stock exchange in a bad catastrophe. They can do all kinds of things to us that we do not appreciate or understand. And just as we are not permitted by law to injure other persons physically, we must sometimes realize that we can more profoundly influence and injure them verbally. Words are powerful things. The ancients had the magic of words. They used mantras, spells, incantations, by means of which they could produce various magical effects. Words in prayer are viewed by most religions as a means of invoking the presence of deity or placing the mind in a mood of receptivity to truth. Words have always been very powerful things. And they were powerful before they could be written. And in the writing down of words, we again produce certain misstatements which we have had very great difficulty in trying to correct. But for all intents and purposes, at the moment at least, we are working with a verbalization that can change the course of history. Every single word that we use can be of profound influence upon our future, or bring back the material from the past which were best forgotten. To use words, then, we must use them correctly. Up to about 100 years ago, in the public school system of the most civilized countries, language was a very basic subject. We did not simply grow up and become able to speak languages because of environment and circumstance. The English language is a very important language, but it is one that is seldom studied scientifically and philosophically for the purpose of knowing the true strength, meaning, and power of word sound. The Oriental peoples have realized that every letter of the alphabet. And all combinations of letters are magical patterns, magical forms. They even go further than this. In Indian philosophy, each letter of the alphabet is a living deity. And out of the combinations of these deities, sounds are produced. The vocal cords are a kind of veena, by means of which the individual can make a melody of his thoughts, emotions, attitudes, and beliefs. But words are alive. They are powerful. The esotericists of Europe, such as the Rosicrucians and those schools, held that words were so powerful that when spoken they never die. That a word goes on as a rate of vibration forever, and that from the lyrics must ultimately be born a new form of generation, by which propagation will be by the spoken word. This was found in the writings of the old alchemists and others, who realized that the vocal cords were the positive pole of the generative system, and that the vocal cords would actually come in due time to be the source of all eternal life. That all lives that have a continuance, either in time or space, are produced by vibration, and vibration is man's instrument of creation. We don't realize this now, and probably won't for a long time, but the fact remains that if we say a word, that this is a sound that is a part of life. It becomes an eternal part, just as much as a germ or a cell or any other minute unit of life goes on, even though its echo dies out. So we know that if we say a word that is destructive, that it adds to the burden of a world's misery. All these different things, like different types of human error, accumulate. We find that temper builds up. We find that all kinds of moods and attitudes become deeper and more powerful, until finally, who knows, the answer is a whirlwind or a tornado. But all destructive vibrations do continue long after we do not hear them or see the consequences anymore. Everything that is negative destroys part of the harmony of life. And as long as the human being is devoted to anger, hate, fear, jealousy, he will